You know, the day destroys the night divides the day. Try to run, try to hide, break on through to the other side. Those are pretty famous lyrics, by the way, by Jim Morrison. Unfortunately, his will didn't help him actually break on through to the other side. Matter of fact, it didn't do any of the things that he probably intended it to do. Good afternoon. My name is John Marciano, and this is Probate Matters. So today we're going to talk about Jim Morrison. It's a pretty interesting probate case. You know, obviously Jim Morrison is a legend, and was an incredible artist. I think he really, at the end of the day, wanted to be a poet, and he unfortunately passed away in 1971 in Paris. He actually went to Paris pursuing, him being a writer and a poet, because that's really how he saw himself. But sort of back to the case. So in 1971, Jim passed away. But years before that, a couple of years before that, he actually did write a will. And, it's pretty amazing that he actually did that, because he would have been around 25 years old as he passed away at 27. He obviously was worth a decent amount of money. Certainly not the substantial fortune that, it blossomed into after he passed away, and his music actually exploded over the next, sort of 3 or 4 decades. But what's interesting is that the will he put together left everything to his common law wife, Pamela Corson. So Pamela was his on again, off again girlfriend, but they did in fact in Denver get married, although the marriage certificate wasn't actually signed. So when he died, he actually in his will provided and put that everything should go to her. The one sort of clause that was in there is that if she didn't live more than 90 days, she had to actually outlive him by 90 days in order for the assets to transfer to her. Well, she did actually outlive him for 90 days, but she didn't outlive him for more than 3 years, because 3 years later after his death, Pamela Corson also passed away. Now, this is kind of where the case gets interesting, because Pamela, when she went to go ahead and collect in that time frame, well, there were a lot of lawsuits that actually went and got filed against Jim's probate case. So when he died, the actual band members came out and said that he had taken many advances in the band's name, and they also were trying to get part of his percentage. He owned 25% of the Doors, and so they literally tried to go after part of his percentage, and they wanted him to go ahead and pay back out of the estate the advances. There were also many women that came out of the woodwork because there wasn't any DNA back then, and so there was no real way to check for paternity. And so a lot of women came out of the woodwork, like I said, and claimed that Jim had fathered their kids. And so anyway, the courts went through all of those claims, but eventually winded up awarding the full estate to Pamela. Now, Pamela at that point had passed away, and unfortunately, she didn't actually have a will. And so because she didn't have a will and she died intestate, everything actually went to her parents. Now, Jim, the way he wanted it was in his will, the way he wrote it, is that if Pamela didn't outlive him by 90 days, that the estate actually should have went to his brother and sister, which he was very close to. He actually wasn't very close to his family or his parents. He was close to his brother and sister, but not his parents. He actually at one point told the media and told his manager that his parents were deceased, because his father was a military guy, an admiral, and wanted Jim to follow in his footsteps, or at least go into the military. But Jim had a completely different thought process. Jim was a pretty well-educated guy. He actually went on to UCLA. He went into the film school. He very much enjoyed poetry and wanted to be a poet, and his dad just couldn't connect with that. And so, Jim and his mom and dad kind of never saw eye to eye. And when he did obviously pass away, it wasn't left to his parents. He would have had his brother and sister, but because of the way it was written, it actually went to Pamela, and then Pamela died intestate, and then unfortunately that winded up going to her parents. An interesting note is that Pamela's parents actually didn't like Jim, actually hated him, and so at the end of the day, his fortune winded up going to her parents because she didn't have a will. Now, fast forward a little bit, the Pamela Corson wins, the estate goes to her, eventually because of intestate laws, goes to her parents. And then her parents thinking, okay, we have this. Well, not so fast, because then Jim's parents came in and actually sued the estate. First, they sued based on saying that the marriage that he had to Pamela was not a legal one. They said that, at the end of the day, they actually showed where a year prior to him getting married, he actually had a real ceremony, kind of a pagan wedding, with another woman. And she, by the way, also filed suit and lost in the court of law, claiming that she was married to Jim. But the courts didn't see it that way. It ultimately went to Pamela. But then Jim's parents argued against the marriage, that it wasn't real, that this common law marriage wasn't real, wasn't legal in California at the time, because they got married in Denver. And when that didn't work, Jim's parents also argued against the will from the fact that they believed that he was under undue influence based on drugs and alcohol at the time when he wrote it. So based on that, there was no way that it should be permissible. So, Jim's parents really wouldn't stop going after the estate. And then finally, around 1980, both sets of parents decided to go ahead and split 50-50. So each of them got 50% of the estate. But what's interesting is Pamela Corson's parents actually retained the rights and images. And, at that time, nobody thought that would be worth anything. But it turned out that Jim's image turned out to be very, very valuable. And, they were able to sell, thousands and hundreds of thousands of t-shirts and cups and, magazine covers and a whole bunch of things based on his likeness. And so the Corsons were, Mr. Corson was pretty smart in understanding that, it really was some value in Jim's image. Let's face it, he was a good looking guy. He was the front man of a really successful, rock band, and, quite frankly, have become an icon. And so, what was interesting at the time of death, Jim was worth $400,000, which in today's terms would be about $3 million. But because of the royalties and because of his image and because music sales ballooned over time, that actual estate swelled to over $80 million, and every year brings in $3 to $4 million in royalties. So, it's turned out to be an incredible windfall for both sets of, folks, both the Corsons and the Morrisons. So it's pretty interesting that, the people that Jim absolutely wouldn't have wanted the money to go to, or his estate to go to, that's exactly who it winded up going to. What's interesting about this is all that could have been avoided had his lawyer or himself, if they had really thought about the long-term implications of what he really wanted. So I'm just going to be a little bit of a commercial. I'm not an attorney. I'm with AdvancedMyInheritance. We do advances for people going through probate when probate just takes too long and you can't wait till final distribution and you need some money now. You can come to us and we'll absolutely help you. But I always recommend, get an attorney. Have them do a will for you. Have them do a trust for you. See what's right for your particular situation. A really good, well thought out will in this particular case would have allowed for Jim's sister and brother to get the estate and, all of the royalties and everything that was in that estate, it would have went to them. Had they just done a little more thought process about it and had a little bit more foresight. So please do yourself a favor. I know sometimes people think, oh, I don't have time for that, or I don't have money for that. But it really does make a difference in the end, because that's the only thing that speaks for you when you're no longer, on the earth. So anyway, I hope this video has broken on through to the other side and explaining how things can, really get away from you if you don't have a good will or a good trust or a good lawyer. So again, my name is John Morrison. This is Probate Matters, sponsored by AdvancedMyInheritance. Please feel free to give me a call anytime. Give a like to the button down below if you like this video, and look out for more videos coming. Thanks again. Have a great day.